Hello students, we shall be reading about glaucoma. Glaucoma is a group of eye diseases which results in damage to the optic nerve and cause vision loss. Because vision loss due to glaucoma can't be recovered, early detection and its management is very important. Glaucoma is often called the silent thief of sight because most of its types typically cause no pain and produce no symptoms until noticeable vision loss occurs. Glaucoma is a disease of concern to us because worldwide about 80 million people are suffering from the disease. Even in India, around 11 million people are suffering from glaucoma, and more than 90% of patients having glaucoma are not aware of their disease. We know that aqueous humor is produced by ciliary epithelium, and from here it passes from posterior chamber, that is the space between iris and the lens, to the anterior chamber, that is the space between cornea and iris, through this pupil. And from here it passes through a sieve-like structure called trabecular mesua into the Slayham's canal, and from here it is drained into the episcleral veins. This is the usual route of aqueous humor, but around 10 to 20% of the aqueous humor also passes through this uveoscleral flow, that is space between uveal body and sclera. And most of the glaucoma patient don't complain of any problem, that is most of the patients are asymptomatic. But in cases of angle closure glaucoma, the patient may complain of intermittent headache, pain in eyes, and colored halos around the light, and they might complain of blurred vision. Most of the patients are asymptomatic. Vision is not affected in early stage, so they will not complain of any visual loss, and so they will remain asymptomatic. But many patients might complain of colored halos around a light because the raised intraocular pressure causes corneal edema, and this gives a prismatic effect over the light, and so they feel as there is colored halos around the light. And with this, due to edema, there may be occasional blurring, and at the same time, patient may complain that his vision is not as good as in the other eye, which is supposed to be normal, in which the eye intraocular pressure is normal. At the same time, the patient may feel that there is frequent change of glasses. This may be because of problem with the ciliary body due to raised intraocular pressure, and there is early onset of presbyopia, that is younger patients will have problem with near vision. The patients might be having family history of glaucoma, and if they have family history of glaucoma, there is high chance that he may be having glaucoma or he will develop glaucoma. Glaucoma is also associated with steroids, especially if the patient is using topical steroids in the form of eye drops for some other eye problems like uveitis, and he may be on oral steroids for other systemic diseases of skin, bone, etc., and autoimmune diseases. And the trauma also causes glaucoma in many patients. In early phase of blunt trauma to the eye can cause inflammation in the eye as well as inflammation of the trabecular mesua. This results in raised intraocular pressure. And intraocular surgery is also associated with glaucoma, like cataract surgery, especially if it is aphakia, because vitreous may block the pupil. Other risk factors are age. Age above 40 years is usually associated with development of glaucoma, and race is another important risk factor. Black race and Asians are more affected with glaucoma than the Europeans, and family history is another important risk factor. We know that glaucoma is most importantly associated with raised intraocular pressure. So, measurement of intraocular pressure of the eye is utmost important. And to measure intraocular pressure, we need tonometer, and the process is called tonometry. This is a Seward's type of tonometer which is placed over cornea after anesthesia, topical anesthesia, and the weight of this whole instrument, this, is passed through this plunger over the cornea, and the weight indents the cornea. When the intraocular pressure is less, the indentation is more, and when the intraocular pressure is high, the indentation is less. And this is reflected in this dial. This is numbered from 1 to 20, and corresponding to this number, this dial, there is a chart. If the dial comes at 5, we go to the point 5, the place where it is written 5, and in front of this 5, this is 17.3 millimeter of Hg. So the intraocular pressure is 17.3 millimeter of Hg. Another type of tonometer is applanation tonometer, which is considered as gold standard tonometer. This is usually mounted over the slit lamp. In this, a specific area of cornea is flattened by applying pressure over the cornea through this prism. And whether the cornea has been flattened accurately or not can be seen by coloring the tear film with fluorescent dye and seen under blue light. And when the pressure is applied through this drum here, by rotating the drum, this moves anteriorly and presses the cornea. And when the cornea is pressed accurately so that the whole surface is now in contact with the corneal surface, then this type of image appears. This is S type of image, or rather 2/2 of C. The inner margin of upper half of this other upper C is made opposed with inner margin of the lower C. This means that the cornea has been accurately applanated, and at this pressure, and the direct reading is made here. Here you can see that it is written 3. 3 is 30 millimeter of Hg. There are other types of tonometer also. One of the type is non-contact tonometer. In this type of tonometer, cornea is not touched with any instrument. Rather, air puff pressure is used to measure the intraocular pressure. And in irregular and scarred cornea, Mackay mark type of tonometer is used as tonopen. There is another type of tonometer also called rebound tonometer. This can also be used. But when the patient is in supine position, especially during surgery or during examination under anesthesia or in examining a child, Sears tonometer can be used and Perkins tonometer. Sears tonometer is routinely used in a supine position even for normal screening and management of glaucoma. Glaucoma is associated with intraocular pressure, especially the raised intraocular pressure. And intraocular pressure is a dynamic thing. It is not static and it varies throughout the day. And in most of the patient, there is a pattern of variation. It usually starts rising at the midnight and keep on rising till early in the morning, and then it again comes down. And this type of variation throughout the 24-hour is called diurnal variation. So in a case of management of glaucoma as well as in diagnosis of glaucoma, this is one of the very important tests in which you will have to measure intraocular pressure at frequent interval throughout the day and night. Patients are admitted in the ward. They are measured every 4 hourly throughout the day and then every 4 hourly throughout the night. And based on this, diagnosis and management is done. Here you know that aqueous produced in the ciliary body passes from posterior chamber to anterior chamber through this pupil, and from here it goes into the Slem's canal through trabecular meshwork and then into the episcleral vein. If there is any resistance in this passage, the person can develop raised intraocular pressure, which can cause glaucoma. Here you can see that trabecular meshwork is away from, or rather iris is away from trabecular meshwork and angle is open. Still there may be some problem with this trabecular meshwork, that the aqueous gets tough resistance while passing through this into the Slem's canal, and this leads to raised intraocular pressure. Since the angle is open, visibly open, so this is called open angle type of glaucoma. But in this condition, here you can see that iris is in opposition with the cornea in such a way that it has blocked the angle, that is trabecular meshwork. And here also you can see that the iris is in close proximity with the anterior surface of the lens. And when the aqueous passes from posterior chamber, it gets a tough resistance while passing through this. This may be because of increased thickness of this lens or synechia over the, that is sticking of the pupillary margin and iris over the lens due to inflammation, and this causes accumulation of aqueous humor in the posterior chamber, and iris bows anteriorly and blocks the trabecular meshwork also. And even if some amount of aqueous passes through this, this cannot go into the trabecular meshwork. Since the angle is closed here, we call it angle closure glaucoma. So another important test in the management of glaucoma is seeing the angle. Since iridocorneal corneal angle cannot be seen directly, you need some surface modification to see the angles. So these are the instruments which modifies the surface. Is called gonioscope and helps in seeing the angles, and the process is called gonioscopy. Most of common type of gonioscope is indirect or mirror type of gonioscope. In this, a gonioscope is placed over cornea, and image is of this angle falls over this mirror, which gets reflected, and you can see through slit lamp. Since it is based on mirror, so image inversion will occur in this. But this is one of the most popular type of gonioscope. Another type of gonioscope is direct gonioscope, in which there is no mirror but only the surface is modified and you can see directly angle through by the change in the refractive angle due to this media. And this is usually used in surgery, especially in supine position, and the surgeon can see the angle through this. Most popular gonioscopes are 4-mirror gonioscopes. These are small and easy to apply. No coupling agent is used, and all the angles, 4 quadrants of the angle can be seen in one go, while other important type of gonioscope is 3-mirror gonioscope, Goldman single mirror gonioscope, or 3-mirror gonioscope. But for Goldman type of gonioscope, you need a coupling agent, so it becomes very messy in seeing the angles. But the eye is very stable while seeing the angle with the help of 3-mirror or single. Retinal nerve fiber layers arising from ganglion cell layers all get converged into the optic nerve through this optic disc. They never cross horizontal line. They will never cross this line. The superior fibers will converge like this, inferior fibers will converge like this, and nasal fibers will come like this. Fibers from fovea will be entering into the optic disc through temporal side. In cases of glaucoma, there is selective loss of, especially in early cases of glaucoma, selective loss of ganglion cell and its nerve fiber layer in the superior part or inferior part here. So you can see here that there is loss of luster, and this is called wedge defect. This is one of the early signs of glaucoma. In this picture also there is inferior wedge defect and loss of inferior nerve fiber layer, and since the inferior part of the retina is affected and it has become less sensitive, so the vision in superior part is lost because inferior retina sees light coming from above, so vision of the above is lost. The nerve fibers of the ganglion cell layer all converge into the optic disc, and which forms optic nerve. When there is loss in the ganglion cell layer, their axons, that is nerve fiber layer, is also lost, and this layer gets thin. When you see the fundus, you will see that optic disc is like this. There is margin and there is a pale color cupping in the disc itself. This is because of some hue coming from cribriform plate of the sclera, which is avascular, while this area between the disc margin and this cup is pink in color, and this represents the retinal nerve fiber layer. So in the case of glaucoma, when the retinal nerve fiber layer is thinning, this neuroretinal rim will also get thinner. This will look as the cup is enlarging because the size of the disc will remain same. But as the nerve fiber layer is getting thinner, the neuroretinal rim also will get thin, and with this the curve will start seeing as you will start seeing cup as it's increasing. So by convention, people may say that cup is enlarged, but in reality, neuroretinal rim has become thinner. So in a case of glaucoma, people describe this as enlarged cup, enlargement of the cup. But in reality, it's basically thinning of the optic, thinning of the neuroretinal rim. Here, this is disc margin, this is the cup, and the area between the blue and yellow is neuroretinal rim. Here you see when you draw a diameter through the center, the white part, that is cup, is 1/3 of the total. So we can write is cup is to disc ratio is 0.3:1. Here the neuroretinal rim has become very thin or almost negligible. So they have written it as 0.95. Cup is to disc ratio is 0.95, means 95% is cup and only 95% is cup and disc is 1. So this occurs in advanced cases of glaucoma. This is normal. This is mild to moderate cases of glaucoma when the cup is slightly enlarged. So evaluation of disc is one of the important method or important thing which you will need to diagnose a case of glaucoma, as well as to see whether the glaucoma is static or progressing. Because as the glaucoma will progress, the neuroretinal rim will become thinner and the cup will start enlarging. So by keep photographing the optic disc every time the patients follow up with you, or at least make a hand diagram of this cup disc ratio. And angles can be seen. Here you can see that there is hardly any trabecular meshwork which you can see. There is no trabecular meshwork. Some of the only trabecular meshwork in some area is visible, but in some area it's not visible. All these are example of angle closure of the eye. In open angle, you can see all these structures: swale base line, which is white in color, trabecular meshwork, and again grayish color of ciliary body, and white, again white shiny color is scleral spur, and it comes with practice actually. Here you can, based on this, here you can see the trabecular meshwork. So this is high chance that this is open angle, but here you cannot see anything, so it's a closed angle. Anterior chamber depth is also associated with angle closure or open angle. Most of the time when the anterior chamber is deep, the angles are found to be open, while when the anterior chamber is shallow, the angles are found to be closed. This is a good association, but not always it is correct. But this association is of utmost importance in a BG OPD, and this is called Van Herrick's angle estimation by seeing the anterior chamber. In this, angle is seen at the periphery of that is near the limbus, and the light thrown by the slit beam, and you compare the thickness of the slit beam over the cornea and depth of the chamber. That is, this white line which is shining is thickness of the cornea, and this again there is a dark line after that, and then lens is visible. Now we compare the thickness of this cornea and this dark line. This is equal. Similarly, this is the not equal. Corneal thickness is much more than the anterior chamber depth. So you can estimate that this is a case of angle closure. This test is called Van Herrick's. Other bedside estimation of anterior chamber is simply by throwing torchlight from the side. Torchlight examination is one of the earliest method in a BGOPD to estimate that anterior chamber is shallow or not shallow, because shallow anterior chamber is many a time associated with angle closure glaucoma. We use several types of classification of glaucoma because management may be different for different types of glaucoma. When the patient is adult and mostly above 40 years, we call it adult glaucoma. Or when the patient is infant or less than 1 year, or we call it congenital glaucoma. And when the patient is present with glaucoma in the early childhood period, we call it developmental glaucoma. And if it has no reason which you can say that this is because of this reason, we call it primary, that is idiopathic. There is no reason. So there is no specific cause which can be detected, then it is called primary glaucoma. But when there is a specific cause or some anomaly is associated with the glaucoma, then we call it secondary glaucoma. Let us suppose the glaucoma is because of uveitis, we call it uveitic glaucoma, or because of long-term steroid use, we call it steroid-induced glaucoma. These are secondary glaucoma. And since the management of open angle glaucoma and angle closure glaucoma might be different, so we can also classify open angle glaucoma, angle closure glaucoma. So let us give an example in which the angle is open and the cause is not known. So we call it primary open angle glaucoma. Similarly, primary angle closure glaucoma. There are a few other terms also, like normal tension glaucoma and ocular hypertension. We know that there is very high association of raised intraocular pressure with glaucoma. But many a time it has been seen that pressure remains within the so-called normal range, that is between 15 to 21 millimeter of Hg, but still the patients develop all the symptoms and signs of glaucoma, that is clinical feature of glaucoma. That is, there will be increased cupping of the disc, loss in the visual field. It can be picked up with OCT also. Means all the features of glaucoma is present, but the intraocular pressure is normal, then we call it normal tension glaucoma. On the contrary, the intraocular pressure is high, but there is no change in the visual field or OCT, then we call it simply ocular hypertension. We don't brand it as glaucoma. With this, I say thank you to all for patience hearing. In the next video, I will be teaching you about other tests of glaucoma and management of glaucoma. With this, I say thank you.